Hey everyone, it's Lori, and I am here today with my September reading wrap up. Is it halfway through October? Yes. Is this as good as it's going to get this month? Also, yes. So, I read 10 books this month, one audiobook, 9 ebooks, very heavy on the romance novels. So, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the one audiobook that I listened to, and that was The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. This is one that I had my girls read for American literature last year. So I'm still catching up on things, but I decided to listen to this one just because I didn't have the patience for a book that wasn't a romance novel, apparently, in the month of September. I enjoyed this. I don't exactly know what I was expecting from this, but it didn't quite fit what I kind of expected. There is kind of a bit of an overarching story, but a lot of it is like miniature stories within the story. So that was an interesting kind of literary device, or however you'd want to phrase that. But I did find this very interesting, and I would recommend it, but it has a lot more episodic things than I kind of expected. I expected it to be just one story, but there's a lot of like little stories in between the main story. So moving into my 9 different romance novels, actually, yeah, I think they're all romance. Let me double check. Yeah, 9 romance novels. So the first one I read was Royal Holiday by Jasmine Guillory, and I think this was the last one in the wedding date series. I read them all out of order because I can't read things in order apparently, but it didn't really matter that much. So this one was mostly about the mother of one of the characters from one of the other books. So if I am remembering correctly, which is very hard to do going all the way back. So there's already been a story about Maddie, and this one is takes place with Maddie going to England to be a stylist to the royal family, to someone in the royal family. And her mom comes along because it's going to be at Christmas time. So her mom kind of falls for this single guy who works for the queen. So it's very cute. There's like the clash of cultures going on. But it's just a pretty sweet little romance where you have one in California and one in England. And are they going to be able to make it work after Vivian, the main character from this book, leaves England? So, cute story. Would be great to read around the holidays, but honestly, reading it in September was no problem for me either. Okay, next up, I read Shipt by Angie Hockman. This one was interesting. It's the story of a woman who works kind of in like the marketing department or whatever for a cruise line, a smaller cruise line that does, like the smaller cruises to like the Galapagos and stuff. And she has kind of this nemesis that works with her, but he works remotely, so she's never actually met him in person, only seen him over Zoom and listened to him on calls. But there's a promotion available, and her boss decides that the way he's going to kind of choose between her and this other guy is by sending them both on one of the cruises, because neither of them have ever been on one of these cruises, to kind of get a feel for it and come up with a marketing campaign to increase bookings for it. And so they're going to the Galapagos, and they end up on the same boat, and then they meet for the first time. And there are sparks. So, of course, they're going to fall in love with each other because it's a romance novel. But they're also competing against each other. And then we've got all this stuff with the boss. Our main character brings her sister along, and her sister has just all sorts of craziness going on of her own. So I really enjoyed this book. This one was really, really good. One of my favorite scenes was they did like a lip sync battle sort of thing. This was the sister's idea for how to, because they're trying to appeal to a younger audience. So the scene I really enjoyed was the love interest lip syncing "Take a Chance on Me" by ABBA, because that's a song that for a while we would play every single night when it was time for the kids to get ready for bed, just because we like to torture them. Another favorite is Mungo Jerry in the summertime. You know, we just would put on like music that would irritate the children to make them go get ready for bed. So anyway, it's a song my husband sings all the time, so I thought it was a really cute scene. I I thought this was fun. So if you like cruises, if you like romance novels, if you like kind of a love to hate sort, or love to hate, hate to love, whatever that is, I think this one is a fun one and you should check it out. And you know how I said Royal Holiday was the last of the wedding date books? That was a lie, because I also read The Proposal, which I think may have been the second book in the series. So basically, what happens in this one is our main female character is at a sports game. I think it's baseball. All sports, I don't care. So she's at a game with her boyfriend, who they've never really talked about anything serious, and her boyfriend proposes to her on a jumbotron and spells her name wrong, and she says no. And so another character, the male soon-to-be love interest, is the friend of another male love interest from one of the other books, because of course he is. He and his sister decide to go save her because like the press is coming in and like there's cameras on her. And so they pretend to know her and get her out of that situation. So they kind of become friends from there. But neither one of them is really wanting a relationship at first. But then they kind of start getting in this relationship, even though they don't think they want to be in a relationship. Anyway, I thought it was pretty cute. You know, the premise of like getting proposed to and having your name spelled wrong. Obviously, that was a very interesting premise. And I liked this one pretty well, but I don't know that I liked it as well as some of the other of the wedding date books. Now, I enjoyed them all, but I just would say it probably wasn't my favorite of the series, but overall it was a pretty cute book. The next one I read was Blackout, and this was by multiple authors. So Danielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodstock, and Nicola Yoon, I guess. So basically, this is a story of a blackout in New York City, and it's following multiple characters kind of in their day-to-day life. They're all young. I mean, this is like YA, so they're all high school to college age, and struggling with their identities and their relationships and so forth. And so we're seeing how the blackout is affecting them in different parts of the city, and they all kind of culminate together at one event in the end. So I thought this one was really cute. It's pretty episodic because you're jumping from this character, this character to this character, but there are like little ties between all of the characters, even if the characters themselves don't really know it yet. So, you know, I thought this one was cute. Definitely worth the read. A unique way of telling a story, having multiple authors tell a story that all kind of ends together at the end. Okay, and then the next one is Talk Bookish to Me by Kate Bromley. Now, of course, the title Talk Bookish to Me and the cover both pulled me in, and I had to read this book because, you know, I like books. So basically, the premise is that our main female character is an author and a bookstagrammer. So she's having trouble writing her next book. Her first book was a big hit. I think her second one was kind of a flop, maybe. I don't quite remember. But anyway, she's got major writer's block. So she's got this deadline looming, and she needs to write this book. And her best friend is getting married, so she's in the wedding party for that. And then shortly after the wedding, she is supposed to leave for a trip to Italy for a long time. I think maybe like 6 months. Long trip anyway. And that was supposed to kind of be her reward for getting her book written. but she hasn't written it yet. So she's a romance novelist, and she's just having a heck of a time. So she goes to the, like, engagement. It's not really an engagement party. It's like a pre-wedding party of some variety that her friend decides to have. And it turns out that one of the groomsmen is her ex-boyfriend from college, and they broke each other's hearts pretty badly. So through a wide range of circumstances, he ends up not being able to stay at the hotel he's booked into, and he can't really find another hotel because the only ones left are expensive ones. So he ends up almost moving in with the bride and groom, and the bride's like, oh no, this is not going to happen. So our main character invites him to stay in her apartment with her for the remainder of the wedding festivities. Now, they kind of hate each other now, but they're still attracted to each other. And so we kind of have this rekindling of a romance, but really struggling against it. The difficulty is the only time their main character can really write in her book is after having these interactions with her ex-boyfriend. So that's part of the reason she allows him to move into her house or her apartment, so that hopefully he will inspire her to write this book. So they kind of have a romance rekindling, and then this very dramatic scene happens at the wedding, and so she leaves for Italy, and they're no longer speaking again. So she's in Italy still trying to finish her book. She meets another guy and becomes friends, and we have to figure out, like, is she going to end up with this new guy, or is she going to go back to the boyfriend, or is she going to do something else altogether? This was another really good book. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. Can't go wrong with romance novel, love to hate to love, or whatever you want to call it, rekindling of romance. It was cute. I feel like I'm saying it was cute a lot, but apparently I liked cute romances in September. Okay, the next one I read was The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. And this novel, I liked, but didn't love. I mean, it was good, but eh. So basically what it's about is an assistant to basically, I think they're like modeled a little bit off of Chip and Joanna Gaines, or whatever their names are. They're like Magnolia. I don't know. I don't watch HGTV. Don't really care. And maybe that's part of why I was like, meh, it's cute, but whatever. So they've got this couple has a home improvement show, and their marriage is just terrible, but they have to look like they have a perfect marriage. So each of them has an assistant. The wife has a female assistant, and the husband has a male. He's supposed to be head engineer or something really fancy, but he's basically the assistant for the husband in this couple. So they have a book coming out. Their marriage is starting to implode, and both of these two assistants are sent on a book tour with them to try to keep them from, destroying their career, because their book is a book of marriage advice and their marriage is imploding. So they're sent on this tour, and at the beginning they don't like each other very much, and of course they start to kind of fall for each other in the midst of all of this drama with their employers, and things are looking pretty good for them, and then something happens where it kind of just comes between them very majorly, having to do with their careers and this business and their employers. And so towards the end, our main character, she has to kind of pick up the pieces of her life and figure out what she's going to do next. And she kind of does. And then we have to figure out, is there going to be room in her life for the love interest or not? So it was cute. I liked the main characters. I didn't love the home improvement couple. I mean, they're not really supposed to be lovable, but this one was a little out there, I guess. Got a little overly dramatic for me. The next one I read was Again But Better by Christine Riccio. And I've read one other book by her, and so I was just kind of looking at authors I had read some books by. And I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically like a Freaky Friday meets Parent Trap. And I'm starting to think this author watched Freaky Friday and the Parent Trap, well, at least Freaky Friday, way too many times, because this is a story about a college-aged woman who's never had a boyfriend, never been kissed, anything, who has been just chugging along at college, trying to do the things her parents want her to do. And she gets into a writing program for a study abroad sort of thing in England. So she's going to that, but she's told her parents that it's a medical program because she's in like the pre-med track to get into medical school. So she kind of lies to her parents. She goes to this thing. She meets a guy. They kind of fall for each other, but it turns out that this guy has a girlfriend back home. And so their time ends and they go back to their lives and they don't have anything more to do with each other. And then 10 years down the road or something, our female protagonist decides when she's in New York City interviewing for, I don't know if it's 10 years, multiple years down the road, she's interviewing for residency. She's finished her med school. She's going to be some sort of doctor, which I don't remember because medical is like sports for me. And I was like, okay, yay, she's doctor. I really can't remember it all. It wasn't a very exciting variety of medicine, I don't feel like. I feel like it was kind of meant to be like the boring medicine, but whatever. So she decides while she's in New York to go see the guy from England just to get closure because she felt like there was something there. And then it just kind of fizzled out. So she just wants to, before she continues on and, because her now boyfriend has proposed to her and she's like confused. So she goes to see him and they agree to go get coffee, and this random person gives them a flyer to this coffee shop. So they go to this coffee shop, and in this coffee shop is a woman that looks just like the woman who sat on the plane next to our main female character on her way to England all those years ago. And they kind of get like sent back in time. They know that they're back in time, but nobody else knows. So they're just able to basically relive their time in England, and figure out how to either make it work or get out of there. So they have a certain amount of time and they're going to find something during one of their trips they go on that will let them go back to their lives. So they have to decide, do we use this token to go back to our lives, or do we try to do this over or do we try to do this over and do it better? So that's the decision they have to make. It's very cute, but the last one was like Freaky Friday meets Parent Trap, and this one's like Freaky Friday meets, I have no idea. Big? That doesn't quite work because that goes the other way. Where's one where you go back in time? Back to the Future? I don't know. So I will be interested to read more of her novels if she has more. I'm not sure if she does yet. I don't know. Are they all going to be Freaky Friday? That is my question. Okay, and then the next 3 books I read were all by Debbie Macomber, and they're kind of in a series, but they're not like series. It's called the New Beginnings series. So the first one's called Last One Home. And in this one, we have a female protagonist who had run away with her boyfriend when she was young, and married him, and he was an abuser, and it took her a long time before she could separate herself from him. But in the meantime, her parents have both passed away, and all she has left is her sister. So by the time she's able to move back across the country to be near her family really doesn't want much to do with her. So she's trying to get her life together. She has a daughter, and she would really love to reconnect with her family, but they're not really interested. So she's trying to make a life for herself. She's involved in Habitat for Humanity. She's doing her volunteer hours so that she can get a house. So she's meeting some people through there. And she meets a contractor, basically. He's a volunteer, but he works, he's a professional in construction. And he is a widower with no children. And they kind of butt heads at first, but then start to fall for each other. So we've got this relationship going on, and then we've also got situations with both of her sisters going on, where they have some things from their parents' house that they saved for their sister, but she has to come get it. So there's this, how is she going to get transportation up there to pick up this furniture? But, you know, the two sisters didn't get, like, when their parents passed away, they just split everything basically between the two of them, asset wise, and so they're starting to feel a little bit guilty about that. So anyway, in this one, she's reconnecting with her sisters. She's got this relationship that's a little hesitant at first, and has some struggles along the way, as pretty much every romance novel does. I enjoyed this one. It was a little hard because she had such a bad experience in her marriage, and like the whole concept of having to start all over again when you've never really been able to make it on your own. You know, that was a little hard sometimes. So this is one, if you need a little bit, I mean, this wasn't like a total tearjerker like some of her books, but a little bit of like teary eyes at least, then, you know, this one is a good one. Last One Home. And then the next one in the series I read next, and that was A Girl's Guide to Moving On. And this is one of the other sisters. So we kind of focus on a different sister now. And she was a very pampered and spoiled wife. And then she found out that her husband had been cheating on her when her mother-in-law, who had been cheated on for years, ended up telling her about it towards the end of the previous book. So both the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law end up divorcing their husbands and leaving. So they're kind of starting a new life over, and they're living in the same apartment building kind of across the hall from each other. The younger one has a young son. And then, of course, her mother-in-law's across the hall. So she's there to help and so forth. But, you know, our main characters are both starting over kind of a new life. So both of them meet men. And then, you know, there's different complications because we've got the dad of the little boy doesn't like the boyfriend at all because of his job and what he looks like and things like that. And then the mother-in-law is teaching night school, teaching English as a second language sort of classes. And she is kind of falling for one of her students, but then her ex-husband gets sick and needs her a lot. So we've got two different relationships going on in this story. And they're both struggling in different ways because of the ex-husbands in these women's lives. So I thought this one was a good one as well. You know, it was interesting to change from one sister to another sister's perspective, particularly from the sister who had been abused for years and finally was able to break free, to the sister who appeared to have like the perfect life, but it turns out that was a lie. So not everybody's terrible life looks the same from the outside. And then the last one I finished in September is the third in the series. I did finish the fourth since then, and that's called If Not For You. This one is about a young woman who has kind of an overbearing mother, and so she moves from her family home in Chicago to Oregon to live near her aunt. Now, her aunt and her mother are estranged from something that happened a long time ago that our main character doesn't really know anything about. And one of her coworkers at the school is one of the characters from the last book. And she wants to set up her friend with this friend of her husband's at this point. And so they have dinner and kind of have them meet, and neither one of them is interested in each other. So they're like trying to escape from dinner as quickly as possible, both of them. And so they leave and they're driving home, and she gets in an accident. This teenager on a cell phone runs a light and rams into her. So our male protagonist jumps out of his vehicle to go check on her and be with her and holds her hands. So she ends up in the hospital, having to have like surgeries and all sorts of stuff. She's going to have to do rehab for a while. And he starts visiting her. And so their relationship kind of begins when he's visiting her in the hospital. And so this relationship starts, but it's not one that her mom approves of. And she's very afraid of her mom coming because her mom is so overbearing. So she has to deal with her relationship with her mother. She's dealing with her relationship with her aunt and the relationship of her aunt to her mother and her new relationship to this guy that she knows her family won't approve of, although her aunt is fine with it, but her mom won't approve of. So she's struggling with all of this. And then our love interest, he is afraid that she doesn't think he's good enough for her, which is what her mom would think. So there's some conflict there. So they have to kind of see if they can make this work even with all these complications. So this one was a cute one. And the relationship starting in the hospital was an interesting twist that I wouldn't have necessarily expected. But I think if I remember correctly from like the author's note, it was kind of based on a true story almost, someone that she had met that had kind of the situation for how she had fallen in love. So I guess that is it. Those are the books that I read in the month of September. If you have any comments or book suggestions, please let me know below. I'd love to hear them. I guess otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.